Kritbacher, somewhere outside of Nashville, Tennessee. This is the award-winning podcast, ParaReality.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for listening tonight. My name is Sandman, and I'll be your guide through this strange realm of ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, aliens, conspiracy theories, and other unsolved mysteries that I like to call ParaReality. How's everybody doing out there? Hope that your 2023 has started off as a good one. I also hope that you haven't fallen into the age-old trap of making New Year's resolutions. It seems that everybody does that, and the new year always brings in tons of new members to the local gyms, and I'm sure they love the first couple of months of every year because they make a ton of money. Anyway, like I said, I hope that you haven't fallen into the New Year's resolution trap. If you have, or heck, even if you haven't, I want you to do me a favor. Instead of making resolutions about all the things that you're going to do, why don't you flip it and make resolutions about all the things that you're not going to do? I think you might find those resolutions a little easier to keep. And now that I've given you something to think about, let's turn our attention to tonight's episode. More than 2,700 leaders across politics and business have gathered in Davos, Switzerland for an annual conference called the World Economic Forum, or WEF. It's been going on since 1971, and this year's theme is Cooperation in a Fragmented World. The meeting, which allows some degree of coordination among elites, has long been targeted by conspiracy theorists. The theories reached a fever pitch after Klaus Schwab, founder of the World Economic Forum, published a book in 2020 called COVID-19, The Great Reset. You never heard of the World Economic Forum? Never heard of Davos, Switzerland, for that matter? Do you know what the Great Reset is? Well, don't worry, because if you've never heard about those things, I'm going to be telling you about them tonight. You'll learn all about the WEF and the two big conspiracy theories that go along with it. But of course, as always, to learn more, you'll have to turn on, tune in, and find out. But before we get to that, it's time to bring back the fan mail segment. So, okay, this really isn't fan mail. It really isn't listener email. It's just something that I was going to do in the premiere episode last week, but I decided not to. I just wanted to bring this to your attention, I guess. It would be a good way to say that. So back in this last December the 22nd, to be exact, I was outside one night about 6:30 in the evening. It had just gotten dark outside here in the Nashville area, and I looked up at the full moon, and there was this chemtrail going across the sky. And you know I'm a big chemtrail conspiracy theorist, and so I've made, I don't know how many tweets about chemtrails in the skies above, not only just above Nashville, but above a lot of the places where I travel. And nighttime chemtrails, well, they're becoming more and more prevalent. I'm not going to say that it's because chemtrails were never sprayed at night and now they're mysteriously being sprayed at night all of a sudden. I just think it's because we're noticing them a lot more, or maybe they have been sprayed at night and now they've just ramped up for whatever reason. I don't know, but I'm not saying they've never been sprayed at night. Anyway, I'm a chemtrail conspiracy guy. And so I took a picture and I made a tweet that said nighttime chemtrails are becoming more prevalent in the Nashville, Tennessee area. What about where you live? Has anyone noticed an increase? And I put the hashtag chemtrails in that tweet. And I got a couple of, and metaphorically speaking, a couple of responses. It really, I guess because I put that hashtag of chemtrail on there, it really sparked this huge debate on Twitter. And I got into my first ever Twitter war with someone, which is completely stupid. I can't believe that I allowed myself to get sucked in to a Twitter war by a faceless internet bully. But someone who, by the way, I was going to read the tweets that they sent me about in response to my tweet. And lo and behold, this internet bully's account has been suspended by Twitter. Go figure, right? So this person's got on there and started, I don't even know what their Twitter name was, and it doesn't even matter because I don't even think that I would say it because that's just not who I am. But, they got on there and immediately started calling me names, trying to belittle me, make me upset, which this person kind of did make me a little bit upset. And the whole reason that I was upset with this person was not because they had an opinion that was different than mine. It's okay to have an opinion that's different than somebody else's. That's one of the ways that we learn. It's one of the things that makes us individuals. It's okay to not agree with somebody on something, but just to start calling someone names, you don't even know this person, never even seen them, start calling them names, belittling them, trying to make them seem like they're an idiot or whatever. That's just plain old cyberbullying. And I called that person out as being a cyberbully. And of course that pissed them off, and we had a little exchange. And after about 4 or 5 little exchanges with this person, this went on over the course of just, one single day. And I thought, the best way to piss off a cyberbully is to ignore them. So that's exactly what I did. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ignore you from now on because you're not worth my time. And I'm not going to be, intimidated by a faceless cyberbully who doesn't have the guts to say these things to someone's face. So apparently this person continued to post, I guess, cyberbullying threats, not only to myself, but to other people. And now their Twitter account has been suspended, and hopefully for good. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because if you listen to this podcast, you are obviously into some of the same things that I'm into. One of those things would be conspiracy theories, which is what this episode tonight is going to be about. So if you're into these things, you probably follow other podcasters or other conspiracy theorists on Twitter. If you have a Twitter account or whatever form of social media that you use. And it's okay to have a difference of opinion. It's okay to not believe the same thing that somebody else believes in. But what's not okay is to just be an a-hole because you can. The internet and social media makes it really, really easy for people to be rude and cruel to each other. And I think most of these people who are doing rude and cruel things to people online and on social media, those people don't have the guts to say things like that to people's face because they're cowards. So if in your web surfing or social media surfing, happen to come across someone who has a difference of opinion than you, or if you make a tweet about something or a Facebook post or Instagram post or whatever about something that somebody else doesn't agree with, and they start trying to cyberbully you and belittle you and call you names and make you seem stupid or make you seem like you have no idea what you're talking about, you know what? The best thing to do is to just totally ignore those people, because if you engage with them, you're giving them the attention that they so desperately desire. And by ignoring them, not only are you not giving them a platform to belittle you on and to bully you with, but you're also not feeding into those desires that they have to be the center of attention, and also it kind of pisses them off. So that's the moral of that story. I'm sure that over 95% of the people who listen to this podcast, if not 100% of you, are smart enough to not get into stupid Twitter wars and social media wars over stupid stuff. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have to say about that. So let's get on with the show, shall we? Okay, now that I've gotten off my soapbox, I just had to get that off my chest. I really, that person, I can't believe, I have always prided myself into not getting into these stupid cyber wars with people. And I let myself kind of get sucked into that. And when I realized what I was doing, like I said, I just totally ignored that person. And I'm very, very glad that person's account has been suspended, because the world is full enough of a-holes, and we don't need to give them a platform to spread their crap over. So let's get on. Let's talk about these Davos conspiracy theories. Many of the world's most powerful business leaders and politicians are currently gathered at Davos, a resort town in the Swiss Alps that has a year-round population of a little over 10,000 people or so. The gathering is an annual event organized by the WEF, or World Economic Forum. This is a non-governmental organization, and according to them, they are dedicated to promoting dialogue and collaboration between business, government, and civil society, and that comes directly from the WEF. So this year's Davos conference took place, and I'm calling it Davos because it always takes place in Davos, Switzerland. So this year's WEF conference took place from the 16th to the 20th of January. So it concluded earlier today at the time that you're hearing this podcast. Political attendees included U.S. climate envoy John Kerry, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and Chinese Vice Premier Liu He. Now, they were joined by business tycoons, including Amazon CEO Andy Jassy, the head guy at Shell Oil, Wael Sawanen, and Gautam Adani, who is the he's Indian, dot not feather. He's an Indian businessman who's currently the third richest person in the world. But the Hungarian-American billionaire George Soros, well, he usually attends, but this year he sent his regrets because he said that there was an unavoidable scheduling conflict with him, which that raised a little conspiracy theory thing going on there, is why isn't George Soros not attending? So with such an array of influential figures, it's surely no surprise that Davos attracts intense scrutiny and is the target of unverified or debunked conspiracy theories. So what I'm going to talk about is, first of all, I'm going to explain a little bit about what the World Economic Forum is, what's happening here in Davos, and the two top conspiracy theories that surrounds the World Economic Forum. So just what is the WEF, the World Economic Forum? Well, today it's known as the World Economic Forum. It was founded in 1971 by Klaus Schwab, who is a German economist teaching at the University of Geneva. And he founded what was originally called the European Management Forum, or EMF. And according to the WEF's website, Schwab wanted to create an informal vehicle for business leaders to talk about key issues like better management techniques. And in February 1971, the EMF held its first meeting in the Swiss alpine resort town of Davos, and this started the annual tradition that continues on to this day. So we're looking at over 50 years of annual meetings. Now, I don't think, of course, it started out as the EMF, the European Management Forum, changed to the World Economic Forum, or the WEF, still the same group. And I don't think it's one of those things that is as popular among the conspiracy theory circuits as, say, the Bilderbergs, or even today, when you talk about having climate change forums, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories that surround those, but you never really hear Bohemian Grove. You hear all kinds of things about Bohemian Grove every year. You hear, about the Bilderberg group every year, but very little, at least as far as I know, is ever said about the WEF until just very recently, and that's thanks to that 2020 book. So over the years, the organization grew, and it increasingly attracted high-powered people like political leaders and key figures from the business world. And this made it a lot bigger than I think what Klaus wanted it to be or imagined it being. I'm not saying, maybe I shouldn't say wanted to be, but I think it was bigger than what he thought it was going to be. It now became, its scope was international. So the EMF changed its name from the European Management Forum, because now we're global, to the World Economic Forum. And that happened back in 1987. Around 1,000 of the world's largest businesses were affiliated with the WEF as partners, typically having an annual turnover of at least $5 billion. Now, according to its mission statement, the WEF engages the foremost political, business, cultural, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. Professor Daniel Hellinger, who is a Webster University academic and author of Conspiracy and Conspiracy Theories in the Age of Trump, told Newsweek not too long ago that the WEF has come to supplant other informal elite power networks. What he said was, the IMF and the World Bank may have more formal institutionalized power over the world economy, but the WEF brings together super affluent corporate leaders who meet one another with elites drawn from other political and social milieus. It's come to supersede Bilderberg and the Trilateral Commission as the most coherent and powerful network of elites who own and manage vast personal fortunes and corporations that have assets that exceed some large countries. That was on the long quote, I know. So, in other words, the WEF now has more high powers, more political leaders, more wealthy members than the Trilateral Commission or maybe even the Bilderberg Group. So you haven't heard about it because it hasn't been that popular as far as conspiracy theories goes. But now you're getting here recently in the last couple of decades, you're getting more high-powered political leaders. You're getting more wealthy businessmen. And now you have this book that was written in 2020 that just so happens to be written by the founder of this whole thing. And he talks about a great reset. And bam, you have Conspiracy Theory 101 subject right there. So what is happening at Davos? Well, you've got around 2,700 business leaders, civil society leaders, academics, politicians who were asked to attend this year's Davos Summit, which, by the way, you can only attend if you get invited. If you're not invited, you're not going there, right? Kind of the same way with Bilderberg, Trilateral Commission, Bohemian Grove. Well, Bohemian Grove is more like a club, but still, if you're not invited, you're not getting in. So the forum consists of a range of things. It's like it's like a convention. It has conferences, meetings, and other events with a large number of topics under discussion. And along with its headline theme of cooperation in a fragmented world, this year's Davos meeting has 5 sub-themes. They're going to talk about inflation, the energy and food crisis, technological innovation, geopolitical risks, and social vulnerabilities. In total, there's going to be 51 heads of state at this meeting, including German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and the presidents of South Korea, Spain, Poland, and even the Philippines. And those people are going to be joined by the General Secretary of NATO, the IMF Managing Director, the head of the World Health Organization, and the chief of the European Central Bank. So high-powered politicians, high-powered, wealthy businessmen and women. Swedish environmental campaigner Greta Thunberg, who I am a little bit obsessed with, she's expected to make an appearance at the event this year as well, but there's been a little bit of hiccup in with that because she had some kind of interaction, altercation, if you will, with the German police. And I don't know if Greta Thunberg is going to make it there or did make it there or not. I have no idea. I would, God, love to be a fly on the wall and hear what Greta Thunberg would have to say at the WEF. Man, that would have been awesome to have done that. So that's a little bit of history about Davos, the WEF, and what's going on there. So this leads us to the conspiracy theories, which is the heart of the show, right? This is why we're here. Well, there are 2 main conspiracy theories that are surrounding the WEF conference. The first one I'm going to talk about. Well, before I get into that, let me say this. The annual Davos meetings, they've been the target of conspiracy theories for quite a while, even though it's not that mainstream, as I use my air quotes, as far as the world of conspiracy theories go. But there's been a lot of conspiracy theories thrown out about them over the years, which generally argue unaccountable elite secretly uses the forum to plot their control over the world to the detriment of the rest of humanity, all of us lowlifes, right? There are people who believe a little bit more extreme, often connected to former President Donald Trump, QAnon movement, and people like that. They falsely believe that the WEF acts as a sanctuary for pedophiles and Satanists. I don't know why pedophilia over the last decade has become such a hot button topic in the world of conspiracy theories. But man, you can have any kind of conspiracy theory that you want and just put pedophile in it, and bam, you've got yourself, something to talk about. It's disgusting is what it is to me. Then you add Satanism in there because, well, if you're a pedophile, certainly you have to be a Satanist, right? Because you can't have one without the other. If you're a Satanist, you're a pedophile automatically. And if you're a pedophile, you're a Satanist automatically. You can't have one without the other. So says QAnon and all the Republicans out there. Jeez. So anyway, I'm getting on my soapbox. The News Punch website, which published a number of stories based on conspiracy theories, it got thousands of shares on its social media sites for a story that it incorrectly claimed that the WEF said pedophiles will save humanity. That's right. They published this website published the fact that or not the fact, but they published erroneously, falsely, that the WEF publicly has said pedophiles are going to save humanity. I don't know how pedophilia can save humanity. That makes no sense. If you think about just how absurd that statement is, you know that it's not true. That's one of the most absurd statements that you could possibly make. That's one of my telltale signs for how to believe a conspiracy theory is true or not. If you look at what the core belief and what they stand for and what they say, and it's so blatantly absurd that it doesn't make sense, then there's nothing to it. So they're saying that the WEF publicly said pedophiles will save humanity. And it went on to falsely say that the WEF chairman, Klaus Schwab, called pedophilia nature's gift to humanity, and they falsely claimed a paper had been presented at a previous WEF conference saying that pedophilia is nature's attempt to cleanse the earth and save humanity from itself. I don't understand how in the hell that makes any sense to anybody. But once again, if you're trying to do clickbait on your website, or you want to get your 5 minutes of fame for promoting a conspiracy theory, just say something absurd and put pedophilia in there, and bam, there you go. Of course, these claims were dismissed as baseless by a reputable news agency, the Associated Press. And the WEF's head of media relations said that this is, of course, completely made up. I confirm that the World Economic Forum never made any statement of this kind and has never produced such a research paper. And, of course, if you're a conspiracy theorist and you believe that they are trying to promote pedophilia to save humanity, then your response to that would be, well, of course they would say that. So, you're going down the rabbit hole there. It's a never-ending argument. Look, part of the appeal of conspiracy theories is that as humans, we're predisposed to look for and see patterns in things and see them even when they aren't there. However, some people wrongly think that conspiracy theories play on our emotions and tend to be very simple and and engaging stories, which are they're just attention grabbing and seductive to people with low levels of information discernment, being particularly vulnerable to these things. While it's true that some conspiracy theories are simple in nature, I think that most of them are very complex and a deep dive into their beliefs. But once again, I want to say, and when I say their beliefs, I mean the beliefs of the people who are doing the conspiracy theory or who buy into it. But once again, if one surefire way to know if a conspiracy theory has any teeth to it or not is to look at their core beliefs. And if it makes absolutely no sense, such as pedophilia will save humanity, then there's nothing to it. It's nothing but bunk that someone made up. Some dude sitting in his mom's basement wanting his 5 minutes of fame made it up. Just like the whole QAnon thing. If you look at the core belief of what QAnon was based upon and the things that quote-unquote Q was saying in his Q drops, made no freaking sense whatsoever. So you know that wasn't, I mean, of course now, looking back on it, you can say, well, there was absolutely nothing to it whatsoever. But look at what that person did, or those people did. They duped millions of people into believing their conspiracy theory and had people just in a frenzy and helped to cause a violent insurrection threatening our very democracy here in the United States. So that's how powerful conspiracy theories can be. But if you look at the core and what they believe, what they say just makes utterly no sense, then don't buy into it. It's bunk. But if what they're saying has some value to it, if it's believable on some form, or another, if it has a kernel of truth in there, then maybe, just maybe, there's something to it. So that's my little soapbox about conspiracy theories there. So while some of the wilder conspiracy theories aimed at the WEF are obviously clearly wrong, the group is influential and it does have a little bit of a questionable accountability to it. So look at it. You're have all of these wealthy people, politicians, people who have great influence in the world, and they're meeting in a high-class ski resort with strict limits on public access. So you have the base makings of a conspiracy theory right there, right? And the WEF may not be able to leverage financial resources to force policies on reluctant governments or shape the world economy, but it is in these off-limit hallways and conference rooms that powerful and wealthy meeting space where elites try to reach a consensus about how to defend and promote economic globalization. So there's these roots of conspiracy theories that are there. And this kind of networking may not just necessarily constitute a conspiracy, but it doesn't represent a transparent and democratic way to address global problems. So you have a group that is very similar to the Bilderbergs, very similar to Bohemian Grove, very similar to the Trilateral Commission, where you have all of these influential people, these high-powered people, elites, if you want to call them that are meeting to discuss world economy, world problems, trying to solve hunger, trying to solve, the problem of war, trying to promote peace or whatever it is that they're trying to do, but yet they're doing it behind closed and locked doors, and the people can't access it, the meetings, and they don't make their findings or their talks public. So you have the seeds here for all of these conspiracy theories for these groups, and it's just a breeding ground for people to come up and sit around and think about, God, what is going on? There's got to be nefarious. There's got to be Satanists in there having sex with the little children. There can be no other thing, right? There can be nothing good coming out of this. It's easy to think that. It's a lot more fun to think that than it would be to think that there's just some dudes sitting around and they're all boring and they're talking about how, how can we produce more corn? I don't know. It's more fun to think of that, which is one of the ways that conspiracy theories gain ground, because it's fun to think about that. I'm a conspiracy theorist myself. Hell, if I wasn't, I wouldn't be talking about these things, right? Okay, so getting back to this, there is a guy by the name of Joseph Usniski, who is a University of Miami academic, and he wrote a book called American Conspiracy Theories. And he said that many people don't know much about international bodies like the WEF, but find that the way that they're run is really suspicious. And he said that, and I quote, "I'm not sure that most people know who the IMF, World Bank, or WEF are. Maybe a few people online know about these organizations and actively accuse them of conspiracy. Oftentimes, people don't always have details about specific groups or their activities, but just think that rich, powerful people are pulling strings from behind the scenes." So that's exactly what's going on with Davos. If you've got rich, powerful people who are meeting behind closed doors in a group that not a lot of people know about, like it's some sort of secret club or something, and you automatically have these seeds for conspiracy theory. So what are the two main conspiracy theories that are going around, circulating, making the rounds on the internet about the WEF and their Davos summit? Well, the first one is that Switzerland is deploying 5,000 troops to the WEF. Now, as the group was preparing to host its annual conference in the Swiss Alps and at Davos, social media was suggesting that there was an infantry of soldiers that was going to be flown in to oversee this whole conference. There's a Twitter account by the Wall Street Silver. It's called Wall Street Silver. It posted on January the 12th, which was just a few days ago, and this tweet was viewed more than 2 million times. It got 27,000 engagements, and this tweet said 5,000 troops to protect WEF and Davos. Are they expecting trouble? And it included a screen grab of an article that had a headline, "Switzerland to deploy 5,000 army troops to protect World Economic Forum meeting in Davos." Now, many misleading claims have been attached to Davos and its organizing body, including that the WEF has its own police force allegedly seen at the event. And the newest claim about a troop of 5,000 soldiers being sent in to protect the WEF is also misleading. The article screen grab that was shared on Twitter by the account Wall Street Silver is actually from the Hal Turner radio show website. Now, this is run by a guy, obviously, by the name of Hal Turner. He's a right-wing conspiracy theorist who, according to the FBI, was sentenced to 33 months in prison back in 2010. Why was he sentenced to 33 months in prison? Well, he threatened not one, not two, but 3 federal appeals court judges. And he has been using his website since its founding to spread numerous other false claims about you name it. Now, while this headline about the 5,000 troops is obviously wrong and totally fabricated, there is a crumb of truth in the article the screen grab came from. Now, it states that the Swiss federal government set a ceiling of 5,000 troops who will serve in support during the WEF, which will run from January 10 to 26. As statements on the Swiss Armed Forces website show, these security arrangements aren't new. They've been approved for previous WEF meetings. Also, crucially, a maximum of 5,000 soldiers have been assigned but not necessarily deployed to Davos. This year, in 2023, the armed forces once again supported the civilian authorities in carrying out security tasks in connection with the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. This comes from the website of the WEF. So you have 5,000 troops that are available if something happens and you need them. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be deployed. That doesn't mean that if they are deployed, that all 5,000 of them would be. I wouldn't know. See, why the hell would you have to deploy 5,000 troops to this thing? But whatever. Now, the Parliament approved this maximum of 5,000 soldiers on these civil affairs support operations from 2022 to 2024. And this year's WEF meeting is going to be held, like I said, or it was held from the 16th to the 20th of this month, January. But the mission that the Army has goes from the 10th of January, so 6 days before, a week before, to the 26th of January, or 6 days after, roughly a week after. Further information online details that the SAF duties at the WEF include things like protecting objects, airspace, persons, and providing logistical support and coordinating medical services should those things be needed. The armed forces play no part in law enforcement services, which are the responsibility of the police. The soldiers carry out their missions in accordance with the ordinance on the police powers of the armed forces. The Swiss government has approved an assignment of up to 5,000 troops to Davos during this conference. However, this doesn't mean that all 5,000 will be deployed, just like I said. As the social media post suggests, that they will be. Nor will they participate in law enforcement, because that remains under the umbrella of the local police. This misleading social media post about Davos included a screen grab from a website that has a track record of misleading the public and purposely putting out misinformation and false news stories. So you got to look at where this intel came from. And it came from a hack radio show from some weird dude named Hal Turner, who is a right-wing conspiracy theorist. So I'll have to say that conspiracy is officially debunked. Now, I know you're like, you're a conspiracy theorist and you're debunking this conspiracy. Aren't you undermining what you're trying to accomplish here? No, because I think, and I've gone on record many times saying this, as a conspiracy theorist, we need to be responsible for what it is that we are saying, whatever conspiracies that we believe in. We need to be responsible, and we need to not purposely try to mislead people. And we don't need to purposely try to come up with a conspiracy or say things about some sort of conspiracy to incite violence amongst the people. Alex Jones is a very, very good example of this. I'm not saying that he deserves jail time, but he certainly does deserve to not be heard anymore. He deserves to go away and hide under a rock somewhere and be forgotten by history. And this Hal Turner person is trying to follow the Alex Jones model of shock and awe to get his 15 minutes of fame. And I think he's flirting dangerously with doing some bad Alex Jones stuff, but I'm not going to get into that. So, no, I don't think that by debunking a conspiracy, I don't think that I am undermining my credibility as a conspiracy theorist or undermining the show. I've often said, by the way, that, if I have a conspiracy theory that I believe in, i.e. chemtrails, if I am proven wrong, I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. I don't mind being wrong about stuff like that. No one really likes to be wrong about things, but in the grand scheme of things, if there's scientific proof that says, hey, all these things about chemtrails are stupid, and here's the proof, and we've got it, and you can't debunk this, then I'll be the first person to be like, okay, I was duped, or I believe wrong, or whatever. So no, I don't think that by debunking this conspiracy theory about 5,000 troops being deployed is undermining anything with this podcast. So what's the second conspiracy theory about this? Well, this is what this all come down to, and that's the Great Reset. That's the whole reason that I'm doing this episode, is the Great Reset. In 2020, WEF Chairman Klaus Schwab published a book called COVID-19, The Great Reset. Now, this book talked about how the coronavirus could impact the world, and it was quickly seized on by conspiracy theories. For some radical activists, the term the Great Reset came to mean that the belief that global elites were using COVID-19 as an opportunity to roll out radical policies like forced vaccination, digital ID cards, and the renunciation of private property, which none of those things have happened. No one's been forced to get a vaccination. We don't have digital ID cards for everything, and you still have all of your property that you owned. So, discussing what he believed the Great Reset would be on his Fox News show, and I hate this guy, Tucker Carlson said, and I'm quoting, "This is what it looks like. The people in charge doing whatever they want because they're in charge. There will be no live music in the Great Reset. Choirs will be illegal unless they are singing the praises of Kamala Harris. Christmas will be banned. Sorry, put on your mask and spend the holidays alone. Good luck." Mike Rothschild, and that's just so stupid. I cannot believe this guy has a television show. Anyway, Mike Rothschild wrote a book called The Storm is Upon Us, How QAnon Became a Movement, Cult, and Conspiracy Theory of Everything. He says that the Great Reset theory had turned the WEF into a major target for conspiracy campaigners. The WEF conspiracy theories are a fairly new thing. It's a fairly new phenomenon, spawned almost entirely by the WEF chairman, Klaus Schwab's book that was released back in 2020. The Great Reset. And Schwab saw the pandemic as an opportunity to redefine how we work, travel, and consume. But conspiracy theorists took this and applied it to the New World Order / UN Agenda 21 conspiracy theories and decided that it was a blueprint for humanity to be either destroyed or enslaved, with only the elites surviving. Now, it's nothing new if you've been studying this stuff for a long time, but it feels very cutting edge simply because of the emphasis on COVID. It's also got a scary sounding name, the Great Reset. It freaks people out, especially when you pitch it alongside conspiracy theories and hoaxes. This conspiracy first surfaced in June of 2020, or at least it first surfaced in earnest in June of 2020, after the WEF Forum introduced the Great Reset Initiative, which was an effort to reduce global inequality and advance environmental initiatives in the wake of the devastation of the coronavirus. Now, the Great Reset conspiracy theorists say that this announcement was nothing more than proof that the global elites want to use the coronavirus as a tool to reorganize global societies and economies to benefit at the expense of ordinary people, with the ultimate goal being a global totalitarian regime. In an October 2020 open letter that was addressed to then President Donald Trump that has since become a cornerstone for the Great Reset conspiracy, the Catholic Archbishop, yes, there's a Catholic Archbishop involved in this. His name is Carlo Maria Vigno. He wrote, and here's what he wrote: a global plan called the Great Reset is underway. Its architect is a global elite that wants to subdue all of humanity, imposing coercive measures with which to drastically limit individual freedoms and those of entire populations. In several nations, this plan has already been approved and financed. In others, it is still in an early stage. Behind the world leaders who are the accomplices and executors of this infernal project, there are unscrupulous characters who finance the World Economic Forum and Event 201, promoting their agenda. Vigno, who is a controversial Catholic leader, has spent the last several years just mired in a series of controversies surrounding sex abuse allegations in the Catholic Church. He paints this bleak portrait of the future where elites use promises of things like universal incomes and debt cancellation to impose a health dictatorship aiming at the imposition of measures of liberty, and demand the renunciation of private property and adherence to a program of vaccination against COVID-19 and COVID-21, whatever COVID-21 is. Those who refuse will be confined in detention camps or placed under house arrest, and all their assets will be seized. That's what this dude is saying. This is a archbishop of the Catholic freaking Church, which has a lot more problems that it needs to be concerned about other than this kind of conspiracy theorist. Now, this guy needs to lose his job just for promoting this conspiracy theory, yet alone all the freaking say. You want to talk about pedophilia. There's a huge conspiracy theory with the Catholic Church and pedophilia, but you don't hear a lot of stuff talking about that on conspiracy theory shows. Maybe that's what I need to do my next conspiracy theory episode on, is the conspiracy theory of pedophilia in the Catholic Church. Ooh, that might get me banned off of YouTube again. I've had several. I've had a couple of videos banned off YouTube, not videos, but audio uploads of my podcast. I upload those to YouTube, and I've had a couple of episodes that have been kicked off of the air by YouTube, which is crazy because I don't really think that I've ever done anything that should warrant me getting banned from YouTube, but whatever. So on November 16th, 2020, the Great Reset began to trend on Twitter with nearly 80,000 tweets, many of which included a video of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau speaking during a UN video conference in September of that year. Now, he was saying that the pandemic provides an opportunity for a reset to accelerate the pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change. He also used the phrase building back better, which theorists connected to Joe Biden's presidential campaign slogan, Build Back Better. And it used as evidence that the two are collaborating in this conspiracy campaign, this conspiracy theory. Just because Trudeau used the phrase building back better and Biden's campaign slogan was build back better doesn't mean they're colluding. Whatever. So by late December of 2020, Twitter activity around the Great Reset had diminished a little bit, but the phrase was still showing up in at least 1,000 tweets a day. 1,000 tweets a day. That's a lot of tweets a day. And that was the diminished numbers. So you look at 80,000 tweets, that's a lot. But 1,000 tweets is still a lot, in my opinion. So one can see long-standing and familiar right-wing conspiracy tropes at play in the Great Reset conspiracy, including the notion that a group of elites are working to undermine national sovereignty and individual freedoms, references to a new world order, and the idea that these malicious actors will seek to exploit a catastrophic incident like a global pandemic to advance their agenda. A common undercurrent among proponents is a mistrust of vaccines, which they believe will be forced upon the people to fulfill the nefarious objectives of Bill Gates or the pharmaceutical industry or whatever. Now, there are strains of the conspiracy that also delve into darker territory, and some have alleged that the WEF and the global elites are engaged in a transhuman project in which humans will be fused with machines and forced to be subservient to the elites. As conspiracy theorist Spiros Akornis says in a video that has been viewed more than 400,000 times on YouTube, he says, this is not about saving the planet. This is not about equality. This is about control. They want to redefine what it means to be human and determine for you your role and your future of being essentially a transhumanist cyborg integrated into this new control grid where we will be unable to distinguish organic life from artificial. We won't even have access to our own thoughts, or we'll have access to them, but we won't even be able to control our own thoughts and emotions because they're going to do that for us because we're going to be tied into their grid system. So the whole entire world, except for the elites, are going to be turned into some sort of transhuman thing. That's a lot coming from that's just a lot coming from a group that's 2,700 members strong. You'd think there had to be more people than that to pull it off, but it's 2,700 members of the elite and powerful, so who knows? Maybe they can do it. Similar fears have been expressed on a variety of far-right and conspiracy-oriented websites, while many propose that the Great Reset is the function of global elites capitalizing on just this particular moment. There have been those that have gone a little step further. Andrew Anglin, who runs the neo-Nazi website The Daily Stormer, he said in an article back in November 11th that the coronavirus was, and I quote, manufactured in order to introduce this new global system. His theory that the virus is not only being taken advantage of by global elites, but was purposefully created by them, has provoked even more dangerous rhetoric in extremist spaces. So once again, here we are getting back to what I was talking about being a conspiracy theorist, but you got to be responsible for what it is that you're saying. He's not being responsible. And beyond conspiracy theorists lurking on the internet, the Great Reset conspiracy has also been propagated by influential conservative authorities too. Though these figures differ in how they engage with the conspiracy, for example, in speculating about who is responsible and just how apocalyptic the Great Reset will be, they're all disseminating variations of the conspiracy to their sizable audiences. And this gives this conspiracy the guise of legitimacy, and it spreads fear regarding future actions by the Biden administration and other elites. They're particularly focused on any potential response to the coronavirus pandemic that's been going on. Just here are just a few examples of influential public figures who have boosted the Great Reset conspiracy theory. First, we have on her November 13th show, Laura Ingraham described the global reset as a way for powerful people to use this pandemic as a way to try to force radical social and economic change across the continents. The fact is, all the signs point to Joe Biden's team being fully on board with this cynical and sick subversion of American independence and sovereignty. And then you have Glenn Beck, who's discussed the Great Reset several times on his show. And he described the Great Reset as the plan cooked up by the World Economic Forum, and it will use the threat of COVID and climate change to force private businesses and corporations into bending the knee to their government overlords. And Ben Shapiro, he disputes the notion that global elites have brokered the Great Reset. He still asserts that the phenomenon is very real, though, rather than simply being a work of global elites. He says that the Great Reset is an attempt by members of the political left to grab control of things they do not own and leverage those things on behalf of their own interests. Now, while he argues that the global elites are not able to manipulate events, he reapplies the tropes of the Great Reset to American politics, linking the objectives of international figures like Klaus Schwab with the American figures such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Progressive Squad, as he calls them. And he warns that this will not be the first or last time that you see the Great Reset. You're going to see it with regard to climate change. You're going to see it with regard to COVID, and you'll see it whenever the next crisis appears on the horizon. And if there's no crisis, they'll manufacture a crisis for you. Even Steve Bannon, the former White House advisor, it's not just a White House advisor, senior White House advisor to back then President Donald Trump, he said the Great Reset is just globalization on steroids, a combination of state capitalism and authoritarian rule is going to be used to help depopulate the earth, kind of like an Agenda 21 type deal. And of course, you can't exclude Alex Jones, and I hate to even utter his name, but Alex Jones even dedicated a portion of his show to speech that was given by another prominent Catholic figure. This time it was Cardinal Raymond Burke. And in this speech, the Cardinal says about the coronavirus that it has been used by certain forces for families and to the freedom of nations to advance their evil agenda. These forces tell us that we are now the subjects of the so-called Great Reset, the new normal, which is dictated to us by their manipulation of citizens and nations through ignorance and fear. Now, Alex Jones had previously said that the Great Reset was a plot by globalists to teach us to not have money and to be poor, and that's how you save yourself, is not having a car, going to a job, and then we're going to dictate to you how to live your life now. Klaus Schwab, the head of the Davos group, and this globalist spokesman, and I'm quoting Jones still here, they're all admitting that they're just using this as a pretext to shut down society and consolidate power to themselves. So even Jones he can't even decide which conspiracy theory he wants to start promoting. First he's going to do that, and then he's going to talk about what Cardinal Raymond Burke said. So whatever he thinks is going to garner him more money and get him more fame and attention. So there you have it. There are the two major conspiracy theories surrounding the World Economic Forum that just concluded earlier today on January 20th, 2023. So in conclusion here's what I think. The popularization of the Great Reset is just another example of the recent rise of conspiracy theories which continue to establish footholds on mainstream social media channels. When left unchecked, conspiracies like the Great Reset carry the risk of undermining faith and democratic institutions by casting its leaders as part of a globalist plot, and can even lead to further threats of violence against government officials. And as I have said several times in this podcast, I'm going to say it one more time. As a conspiracy theorist, which I am, we must be responsible with the theories and the ideas that we promote. We must not, and I cannot stress this enough, as a conspiracy theorist, we must not promote anything that has to do with violence against another human being or even animals. And some of these conspiracy theories about the Great Reset are bordering on calling for violence. And when you have a forum, which anybody today can have a forum. Look at me. I'm nobody, and I have my own podcast that I've been doing this is the 17th year. So I have a forum. I have a platform to speak. Everybody in the world does now, thanks to the power of the internet. But if you have that platform and you are so popular that you have millions and millions of listeners who hang on your words, and you promote violence against somebody else, the chances that there are some unstable people who are listening to what you have to say is very high. And the consequences for you saying things that you shouldn't, well, those are on you. So let's be responsible as conspiracy theorists. And if there are conspiracy theorists out there who are not being responsible and they're trying to promote distrust and violence, then we need to make them accountable for their actions. And that, ladies and gentlemen, those are my 2 cents in this whole thing. Well, that about does it for this episode of ParaReality. I hope that you enjoyed my rants tonight. If you want to leave a comment about anything that I had to say on the podcast tonight or anything else about the podcast, let me tell you how you can get in touch with me, because there are a few different ways you can do it. First of all, the fastest, best, and easiest way is to just simply email me. That's sandman@parareality.com. Or if you've got Facebook, you can go to the official ParaReality Facebook page. It's at facebook.com/sandman.parareality. You can post a message on my wall or slide right into my DMs there. If you have a Twitter or an Instagram account, you can follow me on both of those. My username is at ParaRealRadio. That's at ParaRealRadio. And finally, you can always call the podcast. I have a line that goes right into the secret bunker here at the podcast, and the number is 615-692-1170. That number to call once again is 615-692-1170, and you can call that any time of the day or night. Leave me a message on the studio line. But I want you to remember this: if you decide to leave me a message, you're giving me permission to play your comment back on the podcast. So if you do not want that to happen, you'll need to let me know somewhere in that message. So those are all the ways that you can get in contact with me here on ParaReality. And by the way, if you do decide to call, there is a 3-minute time limit, I believe, on the voice message. So if you get cut off, just call back, pick up where you left off. Don't forget to visit my website, ParaReality.com. That's a place where you can not only listen to the podcast, but you can keep up with the latest paranormal news from all around the world. I've got an entire page of the website devoted to paranormal news, and the content is updated almost daily. It's right there on the Para News tab on the homepage. You can also shop in the ParaReality store, watch some really shitty videos that I've made for the show over the years, and listen to the podcast archives. I've got tons of audio on the website, and it's all available for free. It's right there on the archive section of the website, and you can find all that content for free. That's ParaReality.com. Make sure you check it out. Speaking of the podcast, I can be heard on your favorite podcast station. Just search for ParaReality or say ParaReality Podcast. If you have a smart speaker, you can listen there too. If you got any of those podcast skills on your device, just say, hey, play the ParaReality Podcast. Remember I said I was talking about YouTube earlier? I do have a YouTube account, and you can listen to the podcast there too. Yes, I do upload all of the audio to YouTube because there's a lot of people who actually listen to the podcast on YouTube. It's also full of some videos like UFO and paranormal documentaries. I got a little news segment that I did a couple of times. I need to bring that back, called News of the Strange. And it's also got some terrible videos that I did back when I was trying to do a video podcast back several years ago. I was trying to do it by myself and didn't have all the nice equipment that I've got now. It's horrible, but hey, I got it up there for your enjoyment. So to find the channel, just go to youtube.com/user/ParaReality1. That's the number 1 at the end of ParaReality. Or you just go to YouTube and search for ParaReality1. Pretty easy. Well, everybody, the next episode of ParaReality is going to drop on Friday, February the 3rd at 8 o'clock p.m. Central U.S. time. So make sure you tune in, and find out. I hope that this podcast opens up your mind to new ways of thinking, expands your consciousness, and produces a change in the way you see the world. If you wish to change, You must lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe. I hope you have a wonderful evening, great weekend, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Good night, everybody.
If you wish to change, you must first lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe.